This content is for informational purposes only. You should not construe any such information or other material as legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. Nothing contained on here constitutes a solicitation, recommendation, endorsement, or offer by Draper Goren Holm or any third-party service provider to buy or sell any securities or other financial instruments whatsoever.
Hey everyone, it is me. We are here. Joseph is here too. Say hi, Joseph.
Hey, what's up?
Boom, boom, boom. We're recording.
Good morning, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
I am recording this on the computer now.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Boom. All right. It says it's recording. Boom, 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 boom. I am apparently recording.
The entire bottle of control. They're all exactly the same.
Crypto art, and then what it really is an NFT.
Wow. Eddie wants to slap the bag.
So this is the next best thing.
DeFi is going to be a bubble.
It's provably scarce.
With Mad Dog.
Crypto, gold, and silver.
Transparent substance.
Take my money, start a war with it.
Without further ado.
Cheers to you, brother.
Get shit done.
Because the system has to collapse before that.
My corona. Cheers. I feel much better now.
Cheers.
Wow, that was heavy.
Boom! We're now live. I had to create that because both Joseph and Adam back in the day would give me a hard time when I'd start every stream and yell boom. And so, dang. Okay, first off, Ali, what are you drinking?
This is some Japanese sake.
Ooh, fancy. How about you, George?
I am rocking it in the free world, man, with a Heineken 0.0 this evening. I got to pace myself so I can keep up with you guys.
All right, I've got slightly higher octane here, but barely. It's like 2%. Thank you so much for joining us, guys, and thank you for the community. I've seen a bunch of people in the chat. Please chat. Let us know where you're at, what you're drinking, how you're doing. Feel free to ask questions in the QA. I'll probably share a link soon for anyone who wants to potentially jump on stage with us. And make sure, if you're watching, to go to meet.blockchainbooze.io, because if you go to meet.blockchainbooze.io, you will potentially be able to join us on stage. You can also ask questions in the QA section. You could chat with the rest of the people in the community. And then after we're done with this hang session, you'll be able to turn on your camera and network and hang out as well. But guys, this is going to be fun. So both George and Ali are friends at this point. We've now all known each other for a long time. And sort of this new format or experiment I'm doing with Blockchain and Booze is that I'm going to bring a few crypto friends on board, hang out and talk about what's been going on, see what they're up to, and have this be a little more conversational, and hope the community can join us a little bit in questioning and hanging out and stuff. So first off, welcome, Ali and George. Ali, why don't you start? Tell us about Blockchain Founders Fund. Tell us what you do and how you got in this space.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as mentioned, Ali Medavji. So I'm managing partner at Blockchain Founders Fund, and we invest in venture build, top tier startups. We are also limited partners on Loyal VC and Draper Goren Holm. So, we sort of enjoy working together. We also did Lunar Crush together, and sort of portfolio companies on both of our sides. And then I also serve on the board of two public companies in the crypto mining space. So one of them is a company called CryptoStar, which is a Toronto Stock Exchange venture company. And the other is Mechanical Technologies, which is a NASDAQ listed company.
Nice, very cool. So, I mean, that's a wide spectrum of responsibilities, going from crypto startups to public companies. Like the chasm probably couldn't be much bigger. But also Lunar Crush, huge fan. So George, speaking of big public companies and large institutions and more professional style businesses going to the crypto space. You just made a transition and you just launched H2 Crypto. Tell us about that.
Well, I can give you the full version or the truncated version. Which one would you like? Kind of the medium version?
Somewhere in the middle. We got an hour. Let's hang out.
Fair enough. Well, look, I think my story is kind of an interesting one because you start to see a drove of people from the traditional finance world, obviously streaking into the blockchain and cryptocurrency world. And I think my story is probably no different than several other folks out there. I will say it took me about 5 or 6 years to fully understand and appreciate it. But my quick story begins in 2015. I was working for a small New York money manager called BlackRock, and a colleague of mine at the time, who subsequently has become a dear friend. And if he's on here tonight, Ed Wazowski, hello. I know he's a big fan of big fan of blockchain and booze. But he came to me and he said, hey, what do you think about Bitcoin? Again, this is 2015. I know this is a family show, so I'm going to be a gentleman. And I said to him, Bitcoin is the biggest crock of X, and you can fill in what that X might be, that I've ever heard of in my entire life. And we laughed and we joked about it. And I remember back in 2015, we were trying to figure out how to set up an account. He was a lot smarter than me. He figured it out. I couldn't, got frustrated and said, to heck with it. And I forgot all about it. And then for whatever reason, at the beginning of 2020, I decided to finally get serious about truly trying to understand what are cryptocurrencies? What is Bitcoin? And for me to do that, I needed to start with kind of the fundamentals and the foundational level of what is blockchain and what is distributed ledger technology. And I started immersing myself into as much literature as I could get my hands on. So I started subscribing to every single daily periodical I could read, books. LinkedIn obviously was an unbelievable facilitator where I could meet people from all over the world that were in the space already. And then I just had this massive aha moment. And for the first time in my career, I could finally understand what this I thought was ridiculous saying about the Gretzky effect, right? Wayne Gretzky wasn't the greatest hockey player in the world because he skated to where puck was, but where it was going. And for the first time in my life, because I was always I always called BS on that, right? Was he a magician? Is he clairvoyant? Come on, that didn't make sense to me. But when I started understanding this technology, I said, there's no doubt in my mind, this is going to be more transformative to the globe than the steam engine, the cotton gin, and the internet itself. And it's a matter of those who know and those who have yet to learn. So the bottom line is, by the time I finally kind of got my sea legs with all this, it was sometime in August of last year. And I decided to use my son as the guinea pig, because I certainly wasn't going to lose any of my money on this, but I figured I would do a sacrificial lamb, and that was my dear son. And so we tried to open up an account for him. We had all kind of issues, couldn't figure it out, tried to ask for help. And I kid you not, this was in August of 2020. It is now July 6th of 2021. And one of the major exchanges in the US, we're still waiting on their response. It's been 11 months. So then we go to the next one. We finally figured it out, but we had some issues. So we go, who was there to call? Who was there to email? Who was there to chat? And we all know the answer to these questions, which there isn't. You're out there in the ether, pardon the pun. And so we just kind of took a leap of faith and hope everything worked. About 4 months later, I finally got my wife to open up an account, the same thing. And I said, this is absolutely ridiculous. This is absolutely insane that there is nowhere to turn when you need help, and yet you're instilling someone with your hard-earned capital. So I was able to meet a couple of folks that Mr. Gorin was kind enough to introduce me to. And we have developed this, what we're calling next generation cryptocurrency exchange, H2 Crypto. And it will be the first to offer true 24/7, 365 live client support. So that's it.
That's wild. And I mean, we've like it's like a meme or a joke at this point, how bad customer support and services are on exchanges. But like, we've sort of been used to it. So if you've been around long enough, like, I don't know, I set up a Kraken account in 2015 or maybe early 16 or something like that. I mean, I don't even know how to log into it anymore.
Do you remember the days where like 90% of your Kraken transactions wouldn't go through? Like
Yeah,
I
on a
remember,
centralized exchange.
but no, because it would kept failing to put in the orders. Like it just wouldn't do it back in the day on Kraken. They fixed it a lot. Like I've heard they're much better. I stopped using Kraken, but I mean, it was just crazy in those days.
And we're not calling out people, but you're talking 5 years ago. And when we were doing this in 2020 and we hit, trades, submit, go, and you just see spin, 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 you're like, wait, what does that mean? And like, help. It's like, yeah, well, forget that. So, I mean, if you look at the numbers, they're pretty staggering. I think that most people that are in our space take for granted that, there's everybody in the world that's in crypto and it's just, ubiquitous, it's everywhere. And it's quite the opposite. That's the reality. You're talking about a global populace of around 8 billion. You have 106 million users, plus or minus, is about 125, 133 basis points across the globe. And report after report after report that comes out, why is this adoption rate so low? It's a simple answer. People are afraid, they don't know what they're doing, and there's nowhere to turn. So this isn't like some, insane secret that's out there, but for some reason, it's been allowed to go on to this point. And the reality is, and I'm not knocking any of these names, won't mention any of them, but the first generation of cryptocurrency exchange, the business model was, if we build it, they will come. And it has worked beautifully. But I think you're seeing more and more traction with this thing to truly take mass adoption. You cannot ask someone to fork over their money, and when they have issues with it, there's like, yeah, you're screwed. Sorry about that. No way.
Well, okay. By the way, I failed to mention at the beginning that we're streaming live on Lunar Crush and all of Lunar Crush's social, as well as all of ours. So I got to throw this out here and throw the Lunar Crush logo. But I have Lunar Crush always open in a tab, and it's pinned. And while you were talking, I brought up the social contributors, right? So you're talking about mass adoption. There's 200,000 average individuals a day that talk about crypto. The highest day ever had 808,000 individuals talking about crypto. How many people did you say there are in the world?
About 8 billion.
Oh, okay. So we haven't even begun yet, right? So it's like so crazy early that it's sort of mind blowing, because we live in it every single day in and day out. So to us, it's like, it's happening, but it's really still just the beginning. I want to remind everybody who's watching, feel free to jump into the chat and also ask questions in the QA. So, Ali, we've been in the space for a long time, like you said, when centralized exchanges, and I think most people's experience with centralized exchanges being bad are on those like crazy days when the market is dumping or the market is rallying and everything comes down crashing, right? But it used to be that on the boring days that you couldn't get trades to work and things like that. But now even centralized exchanges are more usable. Are you seeing, you invest in early stage companies, are you seeing that trend kind of getting better? At least, I think we're getting to the point where mainstream technology can work. We're getting to the point where guys like George are launching companies that can actually be used by the mainstream. People feel comfortable with them. Are you seeing that more with other categories other than trading, like gaming, other things?
Yeah, absolutely, right. So we sort of break down into a couple parts, right? So one of them is looking at blockchain companies that are not using crypto, right? And then there's sort of the crypto, sort of more crypto related companies. And we're seeing it on both of these sides, right? So if you take blockchain, which a lot of people still, struggle to find real good use cases in sort of, enterprise or sort of corporate, et cetera. For example, we have a company in the media and entertainment space called BeatDap, and they now track over 70 million monthly active users in the music space. So this is between the streaming service, you can think of like Apple Music, Spotify as a streaming service, and the records and labels, right? And they help reduce that discrepancy or eliminate that discrepancy between reported and actual plays. And so this is, solving a huge $4.5 billion plus problem, and already gaining major traction on this, right? And then you could look at in gaming, I mean, Splinterlands is a good one. They're a portfolio company of ours. I know you're well aware of them, and I saw you and your son were playing it.
My son and I play it sometimes with each other. As we were talking about it earlier before we went live, because I'm a fan of theirs. There's like I always joke on Twitter and stuff. There's like a few companies in the space that I talk about that aren't in our portfolio. I wish they were in our portfolio, but it's how you can you can tell that I'm a nerd for the space, because there's I even shill companies that aren't in our portfolio.
There you go, right? But
Splinterlands is fun too. It's a fun game.
Yeah, and they're crushing it, right? I mean, I think the last I looked, in-game assets were up over 23x in sort of the last year or so. I mean, that performance is pretty crazy, right? And all of their land is sold out already. All of their card packs, their major card packs, are all sold out right now as well. They're having record number of users every day. I think yesterday was another record that they broke in terms of user signups. And so it's just fascinating to see sort of every day, every other day, they're sort of breaking some other record that they, in company history. So, we're seeing tremendous progress. I think people love just the gamification and sort of what they built there. And we're seeing it with other things in the NFT and gaming space as well. So
it's like Jake just said in the chat, it's way too addicting. It really is. It's super fun.
Splinterlands player.
That's the thing, though. Awesome. If you were a kid that grew up buying comic books or buying comic book cards or baseball cards, things like that, there is also that just like, not to mention a Splinterlands competitor, but I played Gods Unchained this week with my kids too. And we opened up some new packs, and like, it's so much fun to open up the pack, to see the graphics and whatever, but then also get the cards and do the whole thing. I'll give a shout out to a funny project on Tezos. Just did something similar where you can, like, you randomly get a card, you don't know what it's going to be until it shows up. It's called Pixel POTUS. It's really funny. It's like these pixelated presidents, and then you combine the cards to make them more rare cards. And so I've got some super rare, like George Washingtons and Abraham Lincolns, and it's ridiculously addicting, right? Like, because you just get into this, it's the same thing as being like a kid collecting it, getting that rare one, knowing that it's rare, knowing that somebody's willing to even pay for it. But I never sell them. I probably should, but I never do. But it's so much fun, and Splinterlands did a great job of combining that with the cards, with the packs, all of that stuff, and then the gameplay too, kind of like that Magic the Gathering style gameplay, but being different enough to be really fun. I'm gonna check the QA, but before I even jump into the QA, I don't know if you guys saw this. Another thing I saw on Lunar Crush staring at my dashboard, although now I can't bring it back up because I have the other screen on, and all my bandwidth is on here. Okay, I don't know if you guys saw this, but did you see that U.S. Congressman disclosed, Alabama congressman disclosed on his investment records today that he holds Dogecoin?
I think that's the second one, right? Or no?
I don't know about Dogecoin, but it was, it's definitely not the first one that has crypto, because I also looked, it's all in the category of $1,000 to $15,000 worth. Like they have to do them in categories. He also has like Cardano and Ethereum and some more serious ones. But I don't know if you guys saw this, because it's so funny. It's so funny to see the chasm, right? Like there's some congressmen calling for bans, and some are buying Dogecoin.
We could talk for hours on that alone, Alon. I think that's a microcosm of everything else going on. It's funny you said that, because I didn't see the Dogecoin article, but I did see another congressman today talking about a full-on ban on crypto. So it's interesting. I think this person, if I remember correctly, maybe in the Midwest, but I didn't see the one.
It could be my good friend Brad Sherman here in Southern California.
I think it was him.
Oh, is that who it was?
Brad Sherman has been on, I thought that maybe a couple of years passing, him understanding some things, some large financial institutions getting into the space, he'd change his mind or at least start playing another tune or something. But he's saying the same bullshit that he said 2-3 years ago. I have an op-ed piece, so I'm local, like I'm literally in the jurisdiction right next to his district. And I used to run, now my friend runs 805 Startups, this local startup community thing. There's like 3,000 members of 805 Startups. So because of Brad Sherman, I mined the database and I figured out that 1,000 out of the 3,000 members of our startup community live in his district. And so I went and I did an op-ed piece in the San Fernando Valley Business Journal, his local business journal that peers of his read and that sort of generation likes to read and whatever. And I ripped him, but I did it in a respectful way. Like, maybe you don't understand. Why don't I take you around town and introduce you to a bunch of the companies building blockchain startups in your jurisdiction that are creating jobs and adding to the prosperity of your community. And of course, I've reached out to his office and never gotten a response. I had another group reach out on my behalf and say that they would allow him to invite a moderator and have a public discussion about it at the venue of his choice, and no response, of course, at all, ever. But what's funny is that this week, one of those groups that I offered to introduce him to, I purposely named big investment firms and companies in his jurisdiction. One of his firms actually posted a big long thing, a whole thread on Twitter, and about how because of him they left the area and they moved somewhere else. And that was one of the people I named outright in the article that I was going to introduce him to. So but it's also such BS, because the crypto community are like the smartest people in the world, and they started doing research on him. And big surprise, his biggest donors to his campaigns are financial institutions. And the people who don't really want Bitcoin to be proliferated, right? So it's so ridiculously transparent.
Honestly, I think that ignorance is bliss when it comes to this. It blows me away the amount of either legislatures or financial people, okay? And I can cast stones at the financial people because I was one, right? I was at the time this 23, 24-year Wall Street guru, knew everything about everything. And when somebody introduced it to me, I immediately said, oh, that's the dumbest thing in the world. That doesn't even make that. Why did I say that? Hubris, arrogance, but most importantly, ignorance. I had no idea what I was talking about. And it's amazing what happens to human beings when they pick something up and read it and try and learn and educate themselves.
Well, you're also not on the Investor Protections Committee. You would think he might understand something. But when it's clear that, I at the first time I was like, oh, somebody wrote this for him. This is crazy. You can't be this dumb and be getting here. And then it's so obvious that they're towing a line. They have to say a certain thing, and they're purposely reading a pre-written statement, and will not ever comment, talk to media, have a public debate where they have to actually, have an argument. Only pre-written statements about why it should be banned and why it shouldn't be allowed. And even when other congressmen explain to them how, the US dollar is actually used disproportionately in terms of for all these illicit things, it's pretty wild.
Well, I'll tell you, this is kind of on the same topic. Is there's been a lot of press over the past couple of days about financial institutions in the UK, and if you look at some of the banks that they're talking about, whether it's Barclays, NatWest, HSBC. These guys know what's going on, right? They aren't trying to put the proverbial kibosh in cryptocurrencies because they think all cryptocurrencies are used for nefarious activities. I mean, HSBC, if I'm not mistaken, has been in a lot of trouble throughout their times with some of their clients and the nefarious actions that they're doing. These folks are trying to, and again, I'm not trying to be political here, but they are trying to ring fence an industry that they see slowly but surely slipping away. And that's happening across the globe. And I think they're going to do anything and everything they can to kind of deflect, what the truth is, as opposed to slightly trying to alter what's going on in their favor, making it seem like they're being, the good corporate citizen, if you will. And again, I'm not trying to be political, but I've been in financial services for 27 years now, and I kind of know how the game is played. The problem is the genie's out of the bottle at this point. I mean, you're talking about an industry that is, it was pre-market kind of pulling back some, but roughly 10% of US GDP at 2 trillion. So I think that ship has kind of sailed. But that being said, whether it's congressmen here or financial institutions there, everybody's fighting to try and maintain the status quo.
It's so what I mean. The thing is, I think that the smart folks in the room are going to realize there's certain, like, you can't, like, I always joke, you can't unring this bell, right? Like exactly what you said. The cat's out of the bag. It's done. But the the old farts at the smart financial institutions, they understand that you can't unring the spell, right? They understand that certain things are here to stay. And you saw, Citi make their announcement. I think it was last week or the week before, where they're going to be offering all sorts of crypto products, and they have a whole group, a crypto group. I've known some of the people on that group, and I've met them before, and they've been working for 2 years behind the scenes getting Citi to make their moves. So it's not something new. It's not something they've only half thought about. But I think that the folks who really get it are going to take advantage of it and provide it to their consumers. Like what you're talking about, George, providing quality service for folks who are sort of scared to step in. These financial institutions can offer some security, right, and make people feel like there's some interesting opportunities here. And so it'll be really interesting to see what happens. I've got it's funny, one of the people who are backstage, if you're listening, you can go into the chat in meet.blockchainbooze.io, hang out with the community there. But jump in the chat if you want to see the link to get up on stage. It's a StreamYard link. One of the people backstage is Freddie from H2 Crypto also. I'll bring him up stage for a minute because I think we got a couple of questions in the QA. But others, David Kim, I see you back there again, but it looks like your camera's off. Get that camera on. What's up, Freddie?
Freddie's in the house.
How you guys doing?
What's up? Hanging out in the dark, getting shit done?
Yeah, all day.
All right, I like it. How are things going? What's new with you? I'm gonna jump into the thing and look for a good question, H2 Crypto question.
Yeah, maybe we should just working. Does anybody have any questions about what we're doing?
Yeah. So
I do love. Like, how is he pulling this off? So
I was gonna say, Freddie, I do love this painting behind you.
Oh, you like? Oh, okay. So yeah, I'm into Renaissance art. I used to be a decorative painter, Venetian plaster, gold leaf. I used to paint frescoes in my 20s.
Really?
Yeah. I'll show you my portfolio sometime.
You're like 2 or 3 years past your 20s, you no longer do it?
Well, it's very labor intensive, especially Venetian plaster and things like that. So once you get past like late 30s, mid 30s, it's probably time to move on and find another career. So
I can imagine. Well, now with NFTs and things like that, there could be a renaissance to your Renaissance paintings. Exactly. So I've got a couple questions, H2 Crypto related. I think there's a couple here that they all kind of blend. So I'll kind of paraphrase here. So one, what does make H2 Crypto a little bit more, oh, looks like also somebody, Ray, looks like he might need, can help with some outsourcing if you guys need more workers. So keep that in mind. Ray, maybe hit me up, Ray, and I'll forward your info on. So a few people asked, what makes H2 Crypto different, and why is your support better than others? That's the first question. So.
Okay, so I've been in IT for a while. I've worked on many client service departments and desks before, but this is crypto and blockchain. We got to treat it a lot differently because there's risk mitigation involved with everything. And our clients come number one. So I don't really want to go into too much of like secret sauce and everything like that, but we created a hybrid model of AI and human beings together in tandem to be able to scale this business properly. Within a client service department, you usually have like 3 tiers. And the higher up the tier, the more technical the client service representative usually is. Well, we're going to have that, but we're also going to have a level 0, which is AI. And when you call in and ask a specific question, they're going to give you the answer to that. And there's a lot of benefits to this as well, not only scalability, but the AI integrating with the client. There's vocal pattern recognition and things like that, where I can for sure tell that it's that person calling in. There's a lot of other types of mechanisms that we're using for security barriers. But this is just a start. I can't really mention too much because it's intellectual property, and spent a lot of time on this. Obviously, from other startups, I had market research the last like 3 or 4 years, and I really started to understand by working with clients, on their computers, what they want, what they need, and I want to provide that to them in the safest environment possible, and that's what H2 Crypto is for.
That's awesome. One of the questions also led into, is it going to be based in the U.S.? Do you have plans for international? What are the steps?
That is a George question.
I presume, are they speaking to investors and traders as far as our scope?
I think that so Joe in the chat just added a similar question. He said, is H2 Crypto US based and targeted, or will it be a global solution? So I know that it's US based, but are you targeting mostly US based traders and users, or do you plan on opening it up internationally?
All the above. So we are domiciled in the United States, absolutely. We feel that being here, there's a tremendous amount of low-hanging fruit. You still only have probably, I would argue, one 800-pound gorilla in the space, and you have a couple of other competitors in the space that are kind of on the fringe. I think that we feel that the opportunity set here is enormous. The interesting thing about our business model, for us to be successful, we don't have to steal one client from one current exchange. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, there's only 100 million out of 8 billion that have exposure. And a lot of these people that haven't gotten in is why we are starting. And that's exactly going to fill that void. With that being said, we think that globally, there are a lot of places for us to look. First off, on the developed markets, we like Canada a lot, so we will be going to Canada. We will be looking at Western Europe. Those are some expansion areas for us. And then, quite honestly, a lot of what we're doing does have a bit of some altruistic slants to it. And I believe it's very important from my vantage point, from Freddie's vantage point, and our other co-founder, Jake Perez, his vantage point, that we kind of want to help people out. And we understand that 1 out of 5 across the globe are unbanked. They have no access to credit. They have no fighting chance whatsoever. So you're talking about communities in Latin America and certain parts of Asia, obviously in continental Africa. So we want to actually try and do our part. The one thing about this industry that I find highly hypocritical is everybody talks about the democratization, give people a chance to fight back, give people a chance to get their freedom back, give people the chance to, take over their financial world. And that's awesome. And that's beautiful. And I agree a whole heart, 100%. The problem is, how can you do that if they don't feel comfortable or know what the heck they're doing? Well, you can't. That's just the bottom line. You cannot do that, right? So again, that's why H2 Crypto is coming in. We understand this. We want to fill that void. And yes, we would love to have global expansion.
Love it. Okay, so Freddie, I'm gonna bump you off the stage because I'm gonna bring David up. But it was awesome to see you, and I've got a couple other questions here too. I might hit one of them before we even fully talk to David. Freddie, it was awesome to see you, man. I'll talk to you soon.
And I'll send you my address for one of these Renaissance paintings. Just send me your crypto address. There
Wait, you say Renaissance? Did you make the one with the Dogecoin head? Now I couldn't even see that.
No, I didn't. But okay. Do you guys like that? Because I bought it because every single time I look at it, it just cheers me up. It's so cool. It's not even funny.
It's not, you know, what's funny is that I usually I love that kind of stuff, but I wouldn't end up having it. Like I buy NFTs and I love NFTs and I like things that are really unique and that someone spent time on. And the meme stuff, for me, is not something I would probably end up buying, but it's just awesome to see. So maybe I would for an office or something. I don't know. I love it.
We actually might need that painting later, Freddie, to curry some favors with an Alabama congressman. So hold on. You never know.
There you go.
All right. Okay.
Good to see you, Freddie.
Thanks, Freddie.
David, is great to see you again. Before we even jump in to hang out and talk to you, I brought you up because, you know, you now have this second week in a row. I'm loving it. We have a good question that actually is along the lines of what George was getting to. We mentioned earlier how adoption is just the tip of the iceberg right now. So there was a great question that Dan said. So he said, so you're talking about a max of 0.01% current global engagement. When do you guys predict 1% and 10% global engagement? Obviously, highly speculative. So he knows we're talking out of our asses right now. But how quickly do you see us getting to 1%, which I guess is about 10x, actually 100x what the Lunar Crush stats are telling us? And when do you think we get to 1,000x that? So what do you think, Ali? You go first.
It's a good question. I mean, the Lunar Crush side is measuring, of course, on socials, right? And so basically the confining group is then technically, say, Twitter users, not global population. So that's one caveat I'm gonna put onto here. But I do think that it's always fascinating to see sort of the data that they're putting out. And the best part, I think, is that it's free, right? Which is also why we got involved with Lunar Crush. And I think it's a tool that literally everyone in the crypto space should be using if they're looking at altcoins. In terms of when it's going to hit 1%, I mean, it's a good question. I probably got to check what the updated number of Twitter users are. Let's see. 200 million apparently. So if there's 200 million users, and how many
the peak was almost 1 million. It was like 900,000 or something. But that wasn't just Twitter. Also, that included Reddit and all this stuff. So if I switch it to only Twitter, it'll be less. But let's say it has to like 3x probably. Let's say for it to get to that 1% of Twitter users talking about
3x. I mean, we'll see it in the next year for sure.
You know, yeah. If you look, let's. I'm gonna bring that back up really quick so we can see the trajectory. George, what do you think in the meantime? Well, how quickly you think the markets will grow? And I'm gonna bring this social.
So here's what I'll say. I don't know necessarily about a date, but I'm going to throw out two catalysts that are going to effectuate the adoption rate change. The first catalyst is the United States government having some type of clear regulatory rules of engagement, okay? When we were launching this business, I vetted 4 or 5 different attorneys in major law firms because we wanted to understand what the protocol was with regards to what we were doing. We literally got 5 different opinions. And so we all know that the institutional space, even though 2020, I think will go down as a seminal year because we finally started seeing some institutional adoption, but we all know the institutional space is really waiting on the US government. So I think once we get clear guidance, I think that's going to be an enormous catalyst for more people to get into the space. The second thing is, which is going to be a little bit tougher, is the volatility around the asset class. I think that what's interesting about cryptocurrencies is they've been around now since 2009. So you're talking about an industry that has been around for 12 years, but yet I would also argue it's still in its very, very infancy. So I think that when those two events happen, and by the way, H2 Crypto is working on something to help potentially really manage and mitigate volatility, which we think could be enormous. But I think that those two catalysts are where you're going to see a flood of entrants coming into the market for the first time.
I'm super excited and bullish for services like this. Now think about this. So social contributors, crypto has gotten a little less sexy over the last month and a half, 2 months, right? Like it spiked up. But what's really interesting is even at today, which is pretty much a low for the last 5 months or so, we're 300%, 296%, about 3x higher number of people talking about crypto than 1 year ago. We're 9x from 2 years ago. So it makes sense. 3x and then 3x from that, right? Another 3x this year makes perfect sense, I guess, right, guys? So very interesting. I love diving into some of that on Crush. And it's all speculative, right? And Ali made the most important point, which is we're just talking about people who are talking about trading crypto. And I think that that's always going to be a much smaller subset of people who are using it. It's like, people who talk about financial services versus the people who have a 401k, right? I rarely go, it's much less exciting, obviously, but I rarely go to social media to talk about my 401k, right? Or my Schwab account pre-crypto. So it does make a lot of sense. We're going to be using it in games. We're going to be using it in all sorts of facets of life. And as banks start adopting it more and more, also we're going to be using DeFi protocols in place of banking services, right? David, how you doing, man?
Yeah, I totally affirm everything that everybody is saying because George, on your point, I work at one of these like fancy law firms. Okay, I've sat in on seminars about that exact kind of issue, and on top of that, I've had conversations with my friends in Silicon Valley, at the FANG companies, explaining just the basics of like, okay, you can do a lot, and they had the same exact response. Like, okay, we're all pretty smart. We all went to the top tier schools, and like, we're doing all right. And what's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? A bunch of dogs, right? So you're absolutely correct. And I think like what you're doing with H2 crypto, and I put a question in on the chat. It's like, what do you do with like the very basic issues that someone dies, lost keys and passwords? I think that's just gonna be terrible. What are you gonna have when you just have, you can't reverse transactions. You can't. How are you gonna collect? Just people just go lose stuff all the time. So I think what you're doing is so important for adoption. And same thing, Alon and Ali, like the games. What you said, Alon, right? Imagine if there's like a massive game, right? Like what you see on esports, like League of Legends, right? Or one of these games says, you know what? If you want a game token, we're gonna hook up, with Stellar. We're gonna hook up with Bitcoin. We're gonna hook up and make this the official whatever for this game. Right. And
well, we brought it up last time in the context of the Barclays Center being renamed the FTX Center and all these things like that. But like, a couple of years ago, probably 3 years ago, it was such a huge deal when the Dodgers did their NFT bobblehead experiment. We're based in LA, right? So it was like everyone in the crypto sphere out here was talking about it. But there more and more integrations are happening, right? Even if it's just the Mavericks accepting Dogecoin, all these NFT things, like these mainstream things will all of a sudden, imagine the second the Mavericks decide to give every single person who shows up to a game or a whole season some kind of NFT thing, right? That's all of a sudden hundreds of thousands of more NFT holders in one partnership, right? And then talking about Tezos now is on like 2 or 3 F1 cars, right? Like the Bitcoin car, the Dogecoin car that crashed. All these was it excellent? Like you couldn't have made. I thought that meme was actually a joke. I thought that was somebody manufactured it. We talked about it last time, but I still can't believe that it was a real thing. There's a slow motion video of the Dogecoin car crashing where you see the Dogecoin like Shiba Inu face just go across the screen as it's crashing into a wall, and it was just like you couldn't have made a better meme, right? Like for the crypto space. whatever. But it's absolutely true. One game decides, you know what, we'll make our assets transferable in the same way they already are, right? But tagged onto a blockchain, right? It's
What's fascinating about this is sort of in what I do, you know, and I'm sure same with you, Alon. Like I've got a lot of Fortune 500s calling us all the time to just explore stuff. A lot of family offices right now as well. And so we're talking about some of the largest, you know, gaming companies to all sorts of other companies, fashion, et cetera, that are looking at this space now and starting to dive deeper, having teams like take a much closer look. And I wouldn't be surprised if they did start making big moves in this space sort of in the coming year or two. So definitely some really, really big things happening. And I think, as you sort of alluded to, I mean, that takes it from some of these companies with, say, 100,000 users or 50,000 users to literally millions to tens of millions and sort of, you know, growing from there. So it's definitely exciting to see and be part of. Yeah,
coupled with products like, and I mean, keep bringing back to it because you're here, George, but coupled with products like H2 Crypto, exchanges and products where people have trust, right? People feel comfortable engaging. There's only a certain percentage of us who are crazy enough to engage in decentralized exchanges, especially a few years ago when, you know, talk about a transaction not going through, you lose money, serious money, if you accidentally pasted the wrong address and whatever, right? And that happened to all of us in all sorts of ways, and that's not going to work for, you know, the average person. I think I brought this up in a meeting the other day, and I don't know if this is still the case, but when I used to do stuff for the startup communities and the angel investing world and build platforms for that world, the number one, we used to talk about this at our meetings, like as a company when we're building products, the number one largest group, like affinity group of people who are accredited investors in the United States are doctors, right? So if you think about that, they're the people who can afford, but also could legally participate in investing in private companies. And is the average doctor a computer nerd? Is the average doctor, and if not, they probably are more sophisticated maybe than the average person when it comes to certain things, of course, right? They're doctors, but are they gonna understand using a DEX, right? Or whatever. And you have to build products that work for them. And they are going to be participating in our space or are starting to participate in our space. I had an ear infection a couple months ago, and I talked to this old man ear, nose, and throat doctor I went to about Bitcoin, like pretty much the whole time. And he gave me his card afterwards. He's like, "We're going to talk about Bitcoin," right? But that guy is not you. Like he told me, his friend told him to go on to Coinbase a couple years ago, buy Bitcoin. He never did. Now he's mad, so he's going to call me up. We're going to talk about Bitcoin. But if a product like H2 Crypto existed back then, he totally would have come on board. David, any thoughts or last words before I grab one more person from the backstage to pop up on stage and we go into networking mode?
Oh no, I totally support like what you guys are doing and pushing and exactly talking about. My cousin's a doctor. He asked me the same question you did, Alon.
Yeah.
Right. Same question about 3 months ago. Same exact
Send
question.
it our way, man.
It's wild. So David, wait, give a quick plug. You are a securities attorney or just at a big law firm?
No. I'm from. Oh, I heard Frederick talk about intellectual property. That's my space. So,
okay, IP. I just assume in the crypto space it's a securities attorney. I think maybe I'm just like on the lookout, on high alert.
No, because it's exactly what you guys were saying, like about the use cases. There's a lot of people, including the banks, looking for the use cases for the next gen applications, right? Beyond trading, because exactly what you're saying, Alon. You know, like okay, traders are they get a lot of headlines, but your average person's like, I don't got time to trade, 24/7 against algorithms and computers. No one's, they're just not. They're not going to do that.
It's also, there needs to be there's investment products that exist now that can kind of fill the gap, right? Like that are automated. And, if we brought on a securities attorney, they'll tell us which ones are kosher and not in terms of, DeFi versus centralized and stuff like that. but there's so many sophisticated, exciting products. And I think that's where financial services will go. There used to be this graph a few years ago about fintech. Fintech was scary to banks, right? But it was an opportunity, and there was a really interesting thing. Trying to remember if it was PitchBook or somebody else created it was a graphic that showed the Wells Fargo homepage and said the unbundling of a bank. And it showed the Wells Fargo homepage, and then it had a bunch of arrows all around it with logos from startup companies who were just basically destroying product by product. Every single product that Wells Fargo was selling, there were a better version that a startup was launching, right? It was peer-to-peer lending, it was consumer lending, it was student loans, it was, auto loans, it was every single little type of product a bank could offer. That's what's going to happen with crypto. The first bank that decides to make Aave their back end for their savings accounts and can offer their customers 9% interest on their savings account are going to break bankrate.com, and everyone is going to move over to them, right? There's no stickiness anymore. I remember working at MySpace 12 years ago, 14 years ago, whenever the heck that was, and moving all of my money to Emigrants Savings Account or whatever the bank was called, Emigrants Direct or something, because I went on bankrate.com and they had like 2.5% interest. And it was mind blowing. A savings account that could get you like almost 3%. Now you'd be lucky to get a fraction of a percent, but that's why we're in crypto, right? It's so fun. All right, I got to kick you off, David. Good to see you again. I hope to see you next week. I'm gonna add. Here we go. David and Andrew.
Hey,
what's up, dude? I think this might be the first time. Oh no, you were up here last time.
Yeah, I was here last week.
I picked up backstage and this part, right? By the way, I'm gonna throw this plug in here. If you're watching on YouTube or on Twitter or somewhere that's not on our system already, come to meet.blockchainbooze.io, because we're gonna open up the networking section in about 5 minutes, and whoever's watching can come hang out with each other. Turn on your screen, come hang out with us. If Ali or George has time, hopefully they can come and hang out for a few minutes too and meet some of the audience. Andrew, what's up, dude? How's your week been?
It's been busy. It's been good
What
though.
are you working on?
I'm working on. I'm building my platform out. I've been coding a bunch this week. I got my platform coming up soon. It'll be going live hopefully within the month.
The IoT platform, right? That rewards you for connecting your IoT stuff. You got to keep us updated. All right.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I came in late. I was like, I saw you guys. I was like, you guys are live. I had to send out a few things, and I got in a little late, but I wanted to come in and join the conversation, say hello.
Love it. We got a good question backstage. Andrew, stay on for the last few minutes. I think this one will pertain. I think Ali will probably have some things to say about this, but it's probably focused on George. It's from our friend Ed Rozowski, actually. He said, why launch a high-tech, high-touch platform? Is there really assets behind people not willing to move into typical exchanges?
Go ahead.
You want me to go or you?
I'll sort of go briefly and just sort of, continue on sort of a point I alluded to earlier, right? A lot of the conversations that I'm having right now with, major family offices, major funds, a lot of high net worth individuals. If you think about the people primarily that have accumulated the most amount of capital, it tends to not be your sort of 20-year-olds and sort of 30-year-olds, and it tends to be sort of your boomers, right? And they have potentially a lot of personal built up wealth or generational wealth, or sort of their family offices, but they're still in the older generation that might still be sort of managing it, even if they're sort of heirs to it. And so there is a lot of capital, a ton of capital. I would say the vast majority of the capital is, definitely outside of the space. George, I think that probably sets it up quite well, probably for your point.
I might be icing on top, but no, I think what you said hit the nail on the head. With that being said, and let's face it, the older generations are typically, I hate to stereotype, but they can be less technologically proficient as younger people are. And they don't necessarily have the time or patience to fiddle around with trying to figure things out and set things up. So if they have something that's about as plug and play as you can get with help on the other side, there is no doubt that, well, again, it doesn't really matter what I think or my colleagues, Freddie or Jake, it's report after report that talks about this. The other thing is, and this is super important, when I first got into the space, I noticed there was two demographics of people, for the most part, that were investing in crypto. You had tech geeks, and yes, I'm going to use the word geek, and I apologize because then I'm going to talk about financial services geeks.
Hey, geek's a compliment.
Financial services geek. And
I used the word nerd the other day, and I had to clarify the person I was talking to that just as an FYI, I'm using this as a compliment.
Yeah, exactly.
Not as a negative. But
I take it as a badge of honor, man.
But my point is, you had like these two demographics that were in the space, right? And in the tech savvy people made sense. The financial service people kind of made sense because they're markets related and market driven. But when you take someone like me who had worked on Wall Street for 25 years at the time, and I'm trying to figure out what to do, and I'm not saying just because I worked on Wall Street for 25 years makes me this guru, but if I had issues with it, and then once I really did have issue and tried to get help and there was no one there, that's when it's like, come on. I mean, come on. So yeah, we can talk about demographics, older and more money and all that. But what about savings, And so and that's one of the things I wish, if I could go back to my 23-year-old self and say, hey, what would you do? Start investing early, start saving early. And those people need it. So it really is the gambit. But Ali, to your point, that boomer generation, and really, I would say, 40 and up is going to be the lion's share, but that doesn't mean the 20 to 40-year-olds, need help.
Here's something that came out the last couple of days. One of the articles I didn't even get to yet on the list of the top articles on Lunar Crush that I looked at before we got on here. That smaller group, that is a huge opportunity. Here's how huge of an opportunity that group is. Robinhood just disclosed that they earned $30 million in fees just from Dogecoin trading over the last couple months. $30 million in fees, right? So if you haven't even unlocked mainstream, it's mind-blowing, right? And it just shows, and it just shows where the market is going. And I remember, Robinhood launching, I don't know, about 10 years ago, and people dismissing it the way they're dismissing a lot of things in crypto. They went, who's going to use a mobile first exchange to trade stocks? Who cares that it's free? You want to go on your E-Trade account, you're happy paying $10 a trade or whatever, but really it just shows where things are going. The user experience is really, really important. And part of that user experience, obviously, for many people is the safety and comfortability and trusting that if you click on that button to talk to a real person is there, right?
I think one of the sort of key things sort of with that, and I was just chatting with a family office quite recently, and they were just like, my mom told me to figure out how to buy Bitcoin, right? And they were experienced, but it's just all over the news. You're hearing all about it, and then you see this record inflation, right? I mean, you've got governments releasing inflation numbers at 2% to 5% these days, and there's no way any of these numbers are right, because if you just look at how much you're paying on things over the last year, it's higher. And you can look at real estate prices, right? It's been interesting. I mean, I was looking at a report the other day for Canada saying the average home price went up 30% in the last year, which is insane.
It's crazy.
And that's just going to loop back into inflation, though, right? So over time, you're going to see this, carry on through other assets. You're seeing it right now in lumber price and all sorts of other commodities, and it's you've got to find ways to hedge inflation, and one of them can be Bitcoin, for example.
Yeah, it's crazy going with George. What George was saying earlier about the kind of the age cap. Now I think a lot of it has to do. In the beginning, it was a lot of these people like me, like just coding people, and it was kind of built towards us. But now with certain tools, I'm happy to say, like, I've got 3 generations. My parents and my grandparents are all on they have their Bitcoin, they have their crypto, they have their Ethereum, their cost dollar averaging, and they know to keep it in there and to save.
That's my mom watching right now.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. So it's like, as long as there's a little bit of learning curve, and I think that with more adoption and more cool tools that people are making to make it that that user experience easier, it's just a little bit different of a language, but all in all, it's it's the same thing, just with a different twist to it.
1000%. So guys, I want to make sure everyone can participate and hang out afterwards and network. So hold on, I gotta go back to this screen. Everybody who's watching, make sure you go to meet.blockchainbooze.io so that you can come hang out at a table, turn on your camera if you want, and talk to us and hang out with us when I end the stream in a few minutes. But before we go, I want last words. Ali, George, Andrew, tell us where to find you. Ali, go first. Blockchain Founders Fund.
Yeah, so feel free to reach out to me on Twitter or LinkedIn at Ali Madavji, or visit blockchainff.com. If you're working on a startup, let us know what you're working on. We respond to everyone that reaches out to us. So, and for sure, of course, to Draper Gordon Home as well, which we're investors in. So.
Yeah, it's a win-win. George, where can everyone find you? H2 Crypto.
You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter. You can find the company on Twitter. And please, I ask you all to go to h2crypto.io and sign up, and we will get you on the wait list and fill you in with all the details as we move down the track here.
Awesome, thank you, Andrew. Do you have a plug for your startup yet? Or
same, man. Okay. Check out nailablenetworks.io, and you can find me on LinkedIn as well and Twitter, obviously.
Awesome. So everyone, thanks again, for the guests for joining us. Thanks, Andrew, for popping backstage, and for the audience and everyone hanging out, participating live. And something I should have mentioned earlier: make sure to go to drapergorenhome.com. Pitch your startup to us. Check out future events. We're working right now on getting everything together for LA Blockchain Summit. It's going to be huge. And hit me on Twitter with feedback on this. I like, for me, the chaos and hanging out with the community and bringing. Like I was telling Ali and George before this, I like I'm gonna call on some of my friends, like the Lunar Crush guys, Ali, George, the rest of you guys, to come up on stage on a regular basis. I'll bring in some big guests like we've been doing in the past, but have it be more community driven and hang out, and be that hang session once a week where we can have beer and learn from each other, talk about what's going on. But if you guys have feedback for me, good, bad, ugly, hit me up. I want to hear it. And if you have ideas for guests and people we should hit, I sent like probably 30 emails today to a lot of really cool people, but I might be missing, I'm sure I'm missing a bunch of really cool people. So hit me up about that. So everybody, thank you so much. It was awesome to see you all. I will see you all next week. Cheers.
Thanks, Juan.
See ya.
Thanks, everyone. Go to meet.blockchainbooze.io right now.